Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's community call for Tuesday, May 14th. The topic today is the RCC Evolution Update. We've got our Stewardship Circle members here with us. You're going to want to give a little wave, Stewardship Circle members. Let people know who you are. Kirsten, Oren, and Nancy are here with us today. If you want to update your names to include your retreat center so that we can get to know you a little bit better, we welcome you to do that. My name is Erin. I'm with RCC. I'm the admin assistant. Welcome any pronouns for me. And I'll just do a quick share of our community values or core values and community agreements. And then we'll turn things over to the Stewardship Circle to let us know what's going on with the transition. All right. So here we have our core values. The Retreat Center collaboration is a community of practice for retreat center leaders and their allies across the US and Canada. Our core values are the power of place and space, meaning we believe in the center's ability to create spaces that are powerful places of transformation and change. The interplay of inner and outer work, that means we're working on ourselves as well as working to bring change into the world. And a commitment to universal flourishing means that all flourishing is mutual. So what's good for us, good for the world. What's good for the world is good for us, not just human life, but all forms of being. Community agreements. We do ask you to speak from your own experience. So tell your stories. If you feel like something is rising up in you as we're discussing things, something that's important to share, we would like to hear what you have to share. We're all knowers and learners in this space. So we each have different parts of the elephant, right? Some of us are experts in some things, and there are some areas where we still have learning to do. And we welcome people sharing what they know and also asking lots of questions. We're here to ask questions. And we may not know the answers to, and that's all right as well. Silence can be centering. So we might use quiet practices to help bring us into the room together, but we might also use movement or sound to bring everyone into the space together. We do ask that you keep each other's stories confidential, but share what you learned. So if someone tells a story that you find meaningful, please take the names away from that story, share the learning, but let people tell their own stories. This is an invitational space. Participate as you are able. So we're leaving room for people to be human. If you feel like you need to take a quick break, that you need to stretch, if you can only be here for a little bit and you need to leave, or if you need to pop in late, come as you're able. And if you feel like you want to be here and you want to listen, but you want to have your camera off, do that too. That's welcome. We do ask that you hold discomfort with grace and deep listening. Some of our conversations are not comfortable. We're talking about hard things. So we ask that you just hold that very gently and tenderly. And we'll all do that together. We'll hold each other in this space. We're not here to fix each other. We're here to companion each other as we go along life's journey. One of our favorite quotations, choice is the smallest unit of liberation, from Dr. Leticia Nieto. So we try to provide as many options for choice as we can in these meetings. And if you have any ideas for more choices that we can give people, please reach out and let us know. We'd like to know. We'd like to hear your feedback. Okay. With that, I think I'll turn it over to the Stewardship Circle. Do you want to introduce yourselves or do you want me to introduce you? Any preferences? Kirsten, Nancy?
I can introduce folks as maybe part of the opening. So thank you, Erin, for grounding us in the core values and our shared agreements for how we are together in these community calls. I am on the Stewardship Circle, zooming in from Three Rivers, Michigan. I was part of the founding group of the RCC and was off leadership for a while and came back on as of last fall. And really thankful to be part of the group that has been charged with shepherding the organization through this time of transition. And my partners in that, two others are here from the circle today, Oren from Commonweal in Bolinas, California, and Nancy in Nova Scotia, also in a transition of sorts, but taking up some leadership roles here with the RCC during this time. And then Erin and Brenda are here, staff people of the RCC, tending different parts of the work. And we also, Francisco is a Stewardship Circle member who is in Costa Rica right now leading a retreat. And Michael, who works at Five Oaks Center in Paris, Ontario. So that is the group of us that is tending the, I don't necessarily want to say the center of things, because this is sort of a broad-reaching, self-organizing network, or that's what we're aspiring to. So each of us is doing our parts, and thankful to see the folks who are here from various centers around the country today. And I think, yeah, I said country, but are we countries? At least with Nancy, for sure, we're across 2 countries. I wanted to do a little bit of an opening for us before I do just a brief overview of things that the Stewardship Circle has been working on. And then we'll have some RHI updates from Brenda. And then Nancy's going to lead us in a conversation related to how some things have been evolving. So, but the opening is, I found myself going back to the green paper. So for those who might not be familiar, when the RCC was just kind of a twinkle in the eyes of some folks who believed in the necessity and power of retreat centers, one of the kind of artifacts that started taking shape around that was originally called the white paper. The name changed to the green paper, in the sense that it's a living document, a document that we have gone back to and refined over time as the RCC has grown and changed, and what it is has come into focus. So that, if you haven't, oh, great. Thank you, Erin. Erin just posted a link in the chat. If you haven't had a chance to check that out at all or lately, it's been a very both grounding and aspirational document, telling the story over time. And one of the things that the Stewardship Circle has done as we kind of leaned back into this work and took a moment of stepping back to reflect and recalibrate was to go back and reread the green paper, which I found really re-inspiring, and for me raised the question of, so the structure of it is kind of the original paper that we worked with, and then there's an addendum from 2022, kind of in the thick of the pandemic. And I found myself wondering, what is the next chapter that we're writing in this living story of the RCC? And so for just a brief opening reflection, I'd like to read a paragraph from the green paper. It's under the heading, Looking Toward a Future of Possibility. And what I'd like to do is read this paragraph twice. The first time I'll invite you just to listen. And when I read it the second time through, feel free to post in the chat any words or phrases that pop out to you. You don't have to be able to explain why they pop out to you. Just what are the things that you notice that are resonating for you from this paragraph about looking toward a future of possibility. So I'll give a moment before I read, a moment in between, and then I'll read it a second time, and feel free to post in the chat the second time. Retreat centers are essential to the transformation of self, society, and the natural world. Many adapted and reimagined themselves during the upheaval of 2020, exhibiting resilience and deep commitment to the power of retreat for advancing equitable and regenerative futures. Looking forward, RCC will continue to weave connections, cultivate trust, and spark collaborative action among such creative and courageous centers. By cultivating collaboration and accompanying centers as they reimagine retreat and their physical spaces, RCC will continue to help leaders work together for a better future. I'll read it again. Feel free to post in the chat. Retreat centers are essential to the transformation of self, society, and the natural world. Many adapted and reimagined themselves during the upheaval of 2020, exhibiting resilience and deep commitment to the power of retreat for advancing equitable and regenerative futures. Looking forward, RCC will continue to weave connections, cultivate trust, and spark collaborative action among such creative and courageous centers. By cultivating collaboration and accompanying centers as they reimagine retreat and their physical spaces, RCC will continue to help leaders work together for a better future. And I see in the chat, weave connections, essential, deep commitment, essential to the transformation of self, society, and the natural world, equitable and regenerative futures, creative and courageous, weave connections, collaborative, reimagine retreats, work together for a better future, connections, regenerative futures, trust, imagination, spark collaborative action, equitable and regenerative futures, accompanying, adapted, and reimagined. This is the work that we're doing together, and I'm thankful for each and every one of you and your partnership in it, and the extended constellation of the retreat center ecosystem that we all represent here today. Thank you. As I mentioned, I'll give you a few updates about what the Stewardship Circle has been working on. It has felt really important from our perspective and from what we're hearing from the extended RCC community to have good communication and transparency in this time after Ben has left, and as we think about the next iteration of staffing and governance structure for the RCC. We have been at work. And a few things by way of updates. The Stewardship Circle has approved a budget for the coming fiscal year. So RCC's fiscal year is aligned with Commonweal because we are under their umbrella, and it runs July through June. So we have a $500,000 budget that we've approved for the coming year, which I would say is modestly aspirational. And we look forward to evolving news on how we're resourcing that budget. I want to thank especially Nancy has put a lot of work into the budget, Erin, Brenda, and the supporting team at Commonweal. Just really thankful for all the work that those folks put into a budget imagining what's possible for the future, but also trying to, I mean, you all know about working the background of systems and trying to get structures and processes in place that give you the information you need and that reflect your values. And that team has just done an amazing job with that, and the back and forth of communication and discernment with the whole stewardship circle. So thank you all who had a part in that. We also had discussed recently, there's been a question in the community about whether there was going to be an annual RCC retreat gathering this year. We have done 2 of those so far, one at Kirkridge 2 years ago, and then one last fall at Five Oaks Center in Ontario. We have decided not to do one in the fall of 2024, so this coming fall, in part because there's some really exciting energy bubbling up for regional RCC gatherings. So there's one scheduled for the Midwest in August. There's one scheduled for the Western US and Canada. I can't remember the dates on that one. Does anybody have the dates for that?
The Western one is September. I'm just doing a quick search here.
Oh, great. And Erin posted a link to event.
21st to the 24th. Yeah, in the West.
Okay. And the Midwest one is August 12th through 14th. Okay. And maybe one emerging for the East and Southeast. I don't have complete information on that yet. I don't think they've set dates. But there's some interest in kind of a group self-organizing that too. So in favor of supporting that energy welling up from the community, we decided not to do a full, binational gathering, but holding out the possibility that maybe we would do one in the spring. It feels important too, if we end up hiring a new person, that they would have a say in how they allocate their time and how we allocate RCC resources. Because it's, you all probably participate in organizing events. It's no small feat to pull something like that off. So we want to support the energy coming out of the community with these regional events, and then also discern for the second half of the year if there's capacity to do and need to do one. And thank you, Eve, for putting your name in the mix of folks who want to collaborate for an East Southeast. I know Erin was going to talk to a couple other folks who'd expressed interest, and so we'll figure out how to weave those connections. That's great. Speaking of Erin, Erin's going to continue with increased hours through July, which we're really thankful for. Erin brings so many gifts and skills and passion for the power of retreat centers, and has been just the right person to help support the RCC through this time. So thank you, Erin. Really glad that you're willing to put some more time and energy and heart into this for a while. And as the Stewardship Circle continues to meet, which I believe we're doing twice a month now, we were meeting weekly for a while. We took a little break. We're back to a meeting rhythm that's maybe a little bit more sustainable than every week. Next conversations that we are working on is refining roles for the Stewardship Circle. Especially during this time of transition, we've all been doing a bit of everything. And it's a good opportunity for us to think about, like, what are the specialties and capacities that we need from each of the people on the circle, and how do we kind of identify what each person is focusing on. Also continuing to be in discernment around a new hire, which of course is a combination of budgeting and what are the priorities and what kind of gifts and skills do we need to support those priorities moving into the future, and making sure we have the spaciousness to have collaborative dreaming conversation around that, to really feel good about where we're going next versus just kind of plugging someone into an existing position. And that also is really bringing us back to values of kind of flattening the governance structure and making sure we have the connections and containers in place to facilitate cross-pollination of all these different circles that are integral to the RCC. There's the stewardship circle, and there's the staff, and there's also the listening circle, which is kind of this broad-based representation of retreat centers who are connected to the RCC, so that there's a chance for professionals on the ground to have meaningful input to where the RCC is going. There's the fundraising circle, so people who are bringing their passion and skills to resourcing the RCC for the future, and also thinking about how is the RCC a resource to retreat centers? Like, how are we getting these great flows of the gift economy opened up and flowing in abundance? There's all different kinds of peer groups that are connected to the RCC, a lot of self-organizing things happening, like the regional retreats. And so we just want to make sure that, it'd be very easy for the RCC to begin functioning like a more conventional, traditional nonprofit, where there's a board at the top that has all the power and authority and makes decisions. And the further you are from that like center of power, the less you understand and the less input you have. We're continuing to push against that, and really try to sustain and nourish a network where there's, you almost can't even draw it out on a piece of paper because it's so beautifully complex, and there's a lot of people taking up their parts, lots of venues for feedback and sharing stories, and having this continue to be a space online and in person that really is nourishing us for the complexity and beauty of our daily work at all of these centers and places throughout the US and Canada. So that was part of the original vision. It's part of the ongoing vision. And so, you all who showed up here today, you are a part of the how of that, which isn't always easy to figure out in a world where lots of us have a lot on our plates already, right? So yeah, those are some basic updates that I have from the circle. Before I'm going to hand it over to Brenda for RHI updates, but just want to pause here to see if anybody has any questions or additions for anything that I shared. Yeah, Sarah.
I have a question that's kind of basic, but I'm not sure I know what Commonweal is.
I'll hand that off to Oren.
Commonweal is an organization based an hour north of San Francisco, and RCC was created here on this land, the idea for it. So when we started this collaboration, Fetzer asked Commonweal to be the home for RCC. So RCC is a program of Commonweal. That's how it came into being. And RCC is also, Commonweal is also a retreat center. So it's kind of a fiscally sponsored project, but it's a little more intimate than that. It's not a transactional relationship, but it's basically the home, basically. So we run all the operations and the HR and all that fiduciary responsibilities. There's more information on commonweal.org. It's spelled like Commonwealth without the TH. So it's for the benefit of the commons, Commonweal.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Any other questions or additions that folks want to voice? All right. As always, communication, however it works for you. Erin can direct you to the right person. All the email addresses for the Stewardship Circle are on the website. One-on-one calls. Yeah, let's keep the conversation going. And Brenda, if you are willing, go ahead and offer some updates for RHI.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you all, and I'm glad that you're here. It's good time to update you about what's going on with RHI. We're just in the end phases of our first 3-year period. I want to say that I'm really grateful for the folks who helped establish RHI, got to come in partway into that. But I'll share a little bit of information on my screen here. Let's see, make sure it's up. There we go. So first, I just want to thank, the people who've been part of the team since I've been there, and then some of these folks also we have transitioned out recently, but still have been a huge part of the work as I've been there. Really grateful for those of you who don't know about RHI. We're a program of the Retreat Center collaboration, and we do a lot of racial healing, and particularly in an embodied way. There's so many wonderful programs that are out there about diversity and inclusion that are coming from an intellectual kind of place. And that's not who we are. We are definitely wanting to do embodied practice with people and to cultivate the inner work that allows people to build deeper relationships, more beloved community, to talk about racial healing, to build the capacity for that together. And we're really grateful that we came out of the Retreat Center collaboration. This is before my time there, but a lot of conversations around the importance of supportive embodied racial healing capacity was lifted up in the Retreat Center collaboration. And Victoria Santos, who's the founder of RHI, built this organization in that context. And so I wanted to put a picture of her because I'm really grateful to her for starting RHI. There's some quotes here from some of the retreat centers that we've worked with. There's a lot of work around commitment to being an anti-racist spiritual center, to doing the inner work for healing, for deepening relationships with each other, and embodying the missions. There's so many beautiful retreat centers who want to further embody their mission and develop the inner capacity to do so. So it's been, it's been an important gift for us to be able to do this work with retreat centers. So I often think about when I was doing Movement Strategy Center and movement building work, how we would have organizers doing work and holding people in community, and then who's doing the healing and the holding of those organizers or healers. And it's a similar thing with the retreat centers. Retreat centers are holding so much space for transformation for community, and they need to do the inner work that they're holding for other people as well. And for so many retreat centers, and just trying to squeak by, get by, stay open, especially in the pandemic times, it can be hard to sometimes carve the time out to do your own inner work as a team. And so it's been a real blessing for our RHI team to be able to hold that kind of space with retreat centers and to support their capacity to have deeper conversations. I mentioned that we're ending kind of this first phase of work. So I will say that Kellogg Foundation has been one of our primary funders in this first phase of work. So this work began in September of 2021. And this phase of work with the Kellogg Foundation grant is the last retreat center that we'll be working with for this part of the grant will be in June 2024 with Pendle Hill. All the other retreat centers that we've worked with have completed their retreats. I would say that about half of the retreat centers that we've worked with are in conversations with us about wanting to continue and deepen and do more work with RHI. And so that feels really exciting and happy to us that about half of the retreat centers really want to continue to go deeper and continue to do work with RHI. So that makes us happy. So in the next phases of our work, as this Kellogg grant is ending, we want to continue to work with some of the retreat centers that are already in our networks that want to continue to do that deeper work together. We also want to bring more diversity and intergenerational retreat centers into our partnerships and networks. So we're really excited about that. As some of you know, we've had continued trainings and resources online, workshops, webinar series, bringing other folks in to teach online. We're also in the phase of fundraising for the next phase of our work, and we're very fortunate that our original funders are really committed and want to give us more money to keep moving forward, and also want to support us in connecting to other funders so that we have the capacity to do even more than we've been doing up till now. And as someone who comes from movement building worlds and doing a lot of social justice organizing and movement building in the past, and bringing spirituality and inner healing into those spaces, I think we're really excited with the retreat centers in our networks to think with some of our partners there about that, especially the ones that are interested in doing movement building. It's wonderful that retreat centers want to do the inner work to become a more embodied, more aligned with their values retreat center. And some of the retreat centers are expressing an interest in building those partnerships with other retreat centers, having white affinity spaces that they're part of, having BIPOC affinity spaces that they're part of, and deepening those relationships with other retreat centers who are also doing racial healing work and doing the embodiment work. So there's a lot of desire for more relationship across the network. And we've been kind of planting little seeds of like, oh, wouldn't it be nice in the future to do an RHI convening where we bring racial healing mentors, partners together to talk more deeply about some of the work and do deeper work across the different retreat centers. In particular, I want to say gratitude to our funders that funded this first phase of the work up through this next retreat that we have. So the Kellogg Foundation has been one of our primary funders for this work, but I also really want to name the Fetzer Institute who supported our work, and as well as our team retreats together annually. And the Hemera Foundation, which supported our work with an initial grant to work with the Buddhist Retreat Center, because they fund a lot of Buddhist work, as well as Jesse Ball DuPont Fund, which funded our work with the Episcopal Church of Delaware and Camp Arrowhead. The Kellogg Foundation has already committed extra resources to support us in our fundraising efforts and to support us in having meetings with other funders and sharing about why they think this work is so important. Similarly, with Hemera Foundation, they've committed and have requested a multi-year proposal for the next phase of our work, particularly interested in our attention to intergenerational and more diverse retreat centers in our networks. So they're excited about investing at a deeper level and over multi-year period. So we're working on that proposal to them right now. And I've been in conversations with lots of other foundations in the last few months, and those meetings are continuing. A lot of these are foundations that have had relationship with other organizations that have been at before. So we really do see a great possibility for continuing the work and for working with more retreat centers and building more relationship. And, you know, a lot of the things you said about RCC, I feel the same thing, you know, the equitable and regenerative futures, collaborative action, accompanying one another, adaptability and reimagining, and the essential to transformation. All those words just made me think a lot about RHI as well, and the importance of holding this work in a good way as we move forward with the next phase of RHI. So if you want more information, if you have not been an RHI center and you're curious about what we do, I encourage you to reach out to me, and I'm happy to share more with you about what that is about. And then, you know, since taking on the helm from Victoria, I'm just really grateful to her for establishing such a wonderful organization and hiring such an incredible team. One of the things I told her when she asked me to step into this role was about wanting to bring an Indigenous lens to the work. A lot of the teachings of Indigenous prophecy of the elders that have taught me, and how important to me, and the interweaving of the racial healing, the ancestral healing, and the land healing, that for Indigenous people, they're not disconnected. They're all one weaving and one thread. And so I appreciated that word of weaving a lot too, and in the share that Erin had at the beginning. So just really grateful, because as we bring up these conversations of ancestral healing in our RHI retreats, we've heard a lot of good feedback around that as well, as people are moving through that work together. And I want to share that yesterday was my 55th birthday. And one of the things that I did was create a little online fundraiser to support RHI. If you feel so called to, I'll put both our website into the chat, but also a link to the fundraiser. If you feel like being supportive of this work that's moving forward, we'd appreciate your support. And let me add a few things in the comments for you. Does anybody have any questions around RHI or what I've been sharing? Here's our website. as well. Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, I'm very grateful to be working with the people that I'm working with and continue to be really inspired by what the RHI centers tell us about the work that we do with them, what that opens up for them. All right, now we'll hand it back then. Double nickel club, I like that.
And I think Nancy is going to take it from here with an invitation to some conversation about things that have been coming up in our various circles across RCC related circles.
Yes, I think it's a good to riff off of Brenda and Kirsten. I'm just wondering, we're at 3:10. Do we want to have a little bio break before I do that? Do we want to? Yeah. Hearing yes.
Yep. Take a human moment.
So 5 minutes, Erin?
Yeah,
We
5
usually-
minutes sounds good.
Okay, so we'll see you at 1:15. And we will talk. Yes, I'm gonna, yeah, share when we come back. People have already gone.
And yeah, when you're back, please let us know either by turning on your camera or giving us a little message in the chat. That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're all here, are we? David wrote as well.
Yeah, I think Brenda. Oh, there's Brenda. Yeah, we're all here.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I'm going to really riff off of everyone. Erin's resharing of our value grounding, regrounding us in our values. Kirsten's revisiting the green paper and possibilities for future. And then Brenda's beautiful reminder of how racial healing is connected to so many other aspects of our healing, land healing, ancestral healing. So what I want to talk to you about this afternoon is resilience and our core programs. It's, you know, it continues to be such a tough time in terms of, you know, peace and continued loss. And yet it is a deeply spiritual time. It feels like there's never been a more important time for the work that we do with retreat centers. I like, Oren, I don't know if it was your phrasing or if I picked it up from you, but that retreat centers are so uniquely placed to address the poly crisis, and the ways that it continues to reinforce in the ways that it intersects. And so what I want to talk to you about is something that's come up in the way that we think about, look at our core programs. So Brenda talked about racial healing, and again, that it's both relational, it's both writing relations as well as writing with each other, as well as writing our relations with the land, and that we are, as retreat centers, inherently place and land-based. It has come up that it's important for us to look at racial healing. Has always been a core program for us. But we have also emerging in our conversations, originally the fundraising circle, and continuing conversations, is the connection between racial healing, land-based practices, and resilience. And I know there's a lot wrapped up in resilience. And so one of the things I want to open up to our conversation today is just what resilience means to you and how these areas speak to one another. Now, and Oren, please come in, because Commonweal is actually doing quite a lot of work on resilience at the moment as well. And this notion that we really want to focus and lift up kind of the heart of what we do around racial healing, land, and resilience. As I said, it came up in one of our fundraising circle conversations. And then there was some discussion, is this a shift in narrative of who we are? Or is this emerging out of our many circles and peer groups? And so again, we want to open this up. And we want to do it with sharing a little bit of our stories at our own retreat centers. And I thought I might, just by way of example and modeling before we're a small group. Do we want to do the breakout in pairs? No, you want to just open it up? We're pretty small, eh? Yeah, so I thought, we can share our stories. What for you is resilience? And I wanted to just offer from my side as Kirsten said, I'm in my own transition, stepping back from being director at Tatamagouche Center. But I thought I would offer some notion of what resilience has been at Tatamagouche Center, and for us in our communities, by way of opening, and then ask you to open up and share your own. So the question is, yes, what is resilience as it comes up for you, your communities, and your center? So some examples at a short story at Tatamagouche Center, we experienced one of the hurricanes in Mi'kmaq in Nova Scotia, and it really ripped through the center. It was devastating, not only because there was damage, so materially tough to be repairing roofs and things, but it literally tore out our apple orchard. And the trees, our tree kin. And so it really kind of hit the hearts when we came back to the center. And so there was all the repair work around that, but there was also renewal in one of the carvers in our community. He turns bowls, took the apple trees and turned them into bowls as a fundraiser for the center. So it was a beautiful way of reinforcing both community and the land. And I also wanted to bring in, sometimes our frame, our what's the right word? I was going to say colonial frames, but maybe I want to say academic frames, our conceptual frames, not always colonial. But I wanted to also offer a Mi'kmaq frame that we had been using at the center, and it comes from the Mi'kmaq clan mothers. And I know it's common to many Indigenous communities, and that is thinking of 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. So we recently had in the fall a gathering where people could reflect on each of our ancestors 7 generations back, walk the land and talk about those connections to the land, to each other, and also vision what is 7 generations in the future. And a lot of it we can't plan or know, but we can listen, we can bring in especially the young people, and we can listen to the land itself for what is needed. So there's that's resilience with a short story at Tata Center. Let's hear a little bit from you. What is resilience for you, your communities, or your center? I'm just going to open it up, popcorn. And again, if you'd like to share in the chat, if you'd like to share a story with us, maybe we'll give you a few minutes just to formulate your thoughts a bit.
Well, I can go. My name is Eve Cook, and I'm from Elohee Center in North Georgia. We have opened up, yes, we've been around for about 13 years. And Commonweal was one of our inspirations, actually. And I went and visited there when I was dreaming of the center. So I think about resiliency. I'm one of the founders. It's a family-founded business. We are a nonprofit retreat center, but we have always thought about doing something like this. We are in the South. We feel like the South is underserved for this type of thing. And we always had to fly places to go to do retreats and things. So we wanted to have something to offer here. The reason it was accelerated in terms of plans of making this place is because I was diagnosed with cancer at 33. And it was lymphoma, so it was supposed to be easy to treat, but it turned out not to be. And so we went on this whole path of discovery and learning. And, as everyone does experience trauma in life, we experienced that as a family then. And what came of it is this retreat center. We wanted to have a place to have refuge and get away and bring it to other people. And so very inspired by the Commonweal Cancer Program that you guys have there. And actually, you know, Bernie Siegel, I actually wrote him and said, what the heck? I'm just going to write him an email saying, how'd you do these retreats and what's going on? And he says, just build it. He actually wrote me back. I couldn't believe it. Like this really famous guy wrote me back and said, just build it and they will come. And it's true, like Field of Dreams almost, but so we built this place and one of our, you know, we have different prongs of how we want to provide to the community and give back to society. And one of them is to help people who can't otherwise afford retreats because we know they're all expensive to come to, and finding ways to help people through traumatic experiences and having them a place to stay and heal. So that's one of our prongs of approach. But since we've been open, we've been trying to just get open and stay open. And so we mainly are a retreat center where folks come, facilitators rent the space, and they bring all different kinds of retreats here. And we've been really fortunate that it's flourishing and all different kinds of retreats that are coming, which is we're really grateful for. We're seeing a lot of BIPOC. We actually have probably 30–40% of our retreats here now are BIPOC retreats, which is great. And people are hesitant to come to North Georgia because of all of the things people hear about, you know, the culture of North Georgia. But the women that come here say that they've said to me time and time again that they feel safe and supported here, which makes me feel really grateful that we can provide something like that. So resiliency to me is going for it and seeing what comes up, and there's trials and tribulations. But if you're coming from the heart and you're wanting to do something based on good intentions and best efforts, hopefully it comes through and shines. And so I love this retreat center collaboration group because none of us who founded this place are in the hospitality industry, we're not therapists, we're not, you know, any of those people. People are passionate about wanting to bring something good. And so learning from other people who've been doing this thing has been helpful for me. And so I really appreciate this forum for that. And we'll keep going. Resilient, of course, COVID hit everybody, but we stuck through, and people, now it's talking about resiliency. People are coming back, and even more with more vigor and more optimism and more desire to do these types of things. So that's my story. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Eve. Both the bouncing back and the flourishing. Yeah, beautiful. Refuge, creating a refuge.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else like to share?
I'm happy to say a few words if the timing is right. Eva, I look forward to being in touch. I will text you my email. I would love to hear more about your story. And so much of Commonweal's discourse around resilience comes from our cancer health program, which was started in 1986 and has now been running for almost 40 years. And so much about the cancer retreat is how do you develop your own resilience to deal with a cancer diagnosis, and how do you develop that strength. And I was just writing about resilience a couple of months ago and talking about how there's different kinds of resilience. There's kind of our own personal resilience, but as Nancy mentioned, there's the organizational resilience. How do we deal with the different stressors that come? And then there's also the physical resilience. And being here in California, we have different blessings that force us into resilience, like drought and fire and earthquakes. And it was the big fires that were here in Northern California. Part of our resilience was setting up immediately a distribution center of basic necessities for farm workers who lost everything during the fire. So when we look at resilience, it's like at looking at it both those levels, and also looking at also what does it mean to be to be set in a community. It's like the people that come to Commonweal, a lot of them they come from all over the world, but mostly from urban areas, from San Francisco and Oakland and Berkeley and other cities. And we're nestled in an agricultural rural community of West Marin County. So what is our role of being a center of resilience for our community around us? And the ways we look at it is like emergency water supplies, setting up a microgrid, thinking about how do we've become a designated emergency shelter for the Red Cross, which all it means is they put a big container on your land with beds and blankets and water, in case something happens and the roads get cut off. So we're trying to ask the question, how does that integrate into all the work that we do, both personally, but also as a community? And we were very fortunate to receive a grant from the local community foundation to actually do research on what are the federal grants that are available for retreat centers to do work around resilience. And we hope that when that work starts gaining speed, we can share it with RCC members. And at the last RCC gathering in Ontario at Five Oaks, one of the things we talked about was maybe doing a little pool of funds to get a grant writer or someone to do intense research both in the US and Canada about what are the resources that are available for retreat centers. And I think we're going to have a community call about resilience coming up soon in a few weeks, and we'll go into more detail then. But I appreciate this question because on one hand, it's pragmatic. On the other hand, it's at the soul of what we do. It's at the core of what we do. And so much of the work that even we may not label it as resilience, it definitely is.
Thank you, Warren. Yeah, helpful to link all the levels and be reminded of the role retreat centers play in that community care and resilience at emergency times, crises, but also generally with loss. And others would love to hear your stories. David.
I think what came to my mind as I was thinking about this question was, we've been around for almost 44 years now. We were founded originally as a monastery. And there were sisters who lived here, and it was that way for about 30 years of our history. And we're about to come out with this book about that history. And so that's launching in June, and we're really celebrating that history. And we're not a monastery anymore. We haven't been since 2009. And so what we're trying to do right now as a community is to acknowledge and honor what's come in the past and the tremendous contributions that the sisters gave to us by founding this place, and also not crystallizing so much of the way the sisters used to do things and those kind of things, because we're not a monastery anymore. We're an inter-spiritual retreat center. So we don't have like a monastic rule for our community members and things like that. And there have been various attempts to try to bring about intentional community and all sorts of things here. And so we're at that point now. It's kind of like when you're a child and you're crawling across one of those climbing frames, you get to a place where you've got to let go of the rung behind you so that you can reach out and grab the next one. And I feel like we're at that place right now. And so for us, resiliency means having faith to know that when we let go of that past, that it's not going to go away completely, and that we're going to carry that spirit with us into the next rung and the next rung and the next rung. And so it's really just communicating that to everyone who has a stake in the forest and in our history and in our future, and to let folks know that we're not abandoning our foundation, but that we are moving on from that foundation in new and exciting ways.
Thank you, David. Interesting to hear about your history. And do you have any thoughts about what resilience is for you? Because you talked about the forest, you talked about the community. any thoughts on what resilience might be? And you certainly don't have to. You can be formulating that.
Yeah, I think for me, it really is about, I mean, I'm really always about bringing what's best from the past into the future and going forward from that. And so, like, even personally, I feel like, I've done a lot of different things over the years. This is my first time working at a retreat center, and I've only been doing it for 4 months now. And so it's just taking everything that I've gained from the past and moving that into what I'm doing here, and recognizing that there's a reason that I'm here, and that what I've gained from my past is also needed here as well. And so, yeah, I think it's really digging into those deep wells that we all have within us, and finding those sources of strength and of resilience. I hate to use the word to define it, but finding those sources of strength in order to move forward. So.
We did also have a comment from chat about resilience at the Franciscan Spirituality Center looks like being able to engage in discernment as a staff and board about our identity and how we authentically welcome guests.
I wanted to add, Jean and I are from the same place, and I wanted to add to that and say, in our community, we have heard a real call for grief programming. And as I was doing a grief circle lately, one of the people said, what we need in the world right now is courageous grievers. Mm-hmm. And that really spoke to me. And also, we train spiritual directors, and I think the world really needs courageous listeners right now. And as we look towards the fall as a staff, we really are concerned about divisions and the elections, and creating programs that really speak to that directly, both before, during, and after November, and just being really present to that in our community. And so for me, resilience is, to use an old term, responding to the signs of the times, and being able to really speak to that deep inner well, that soul that people are longing for.
Thank you, Sarah. Powerful. Courageous grievers and listeners. Marlene.
Yeah, I think coming to the forefront for me, I'm sitting on my back porch, and it's lilac season where I live. And I think that's just for me. I pruned back some of our lilacs because we had to stain the fence, whatever. And then the ones I didn't, but whether you prune back or whether you let them go, lilacs, they just come back. They come back. They just come back every year. I can do absolutely nothing to it, and it just showers us with this beautiful flower, fragrant flower, and then sometimes they do need prune. Sometimes for whatever reason we have to cut back, and they bounce back, like just incredible. So I guess that nature in a lot of ways just is constantly showing us resilience. And you have to get out into it to be able to, right? To see it, to smell it, to touch it. So I think that's certainly one of my favorite parts of retreat, and I do camping ministry too, but just particularly getting kids out amongst the trees and the bugs and all the stuff. So just observation, being able to observe it and be grateful for it, I guess. Gratitude certainly plays a role, I think. So.
Thank you, Marlene, for that beautiful metaphor and reminder. Yeah, resilience is all around us. It's a beautiful reminder.
Hey, Nancy, I'm really appreciating the invitation to approach this through the practice of storytelling and images. And I feel like it's evoking sort of this reel of places and examples and memories from my time here at Gilchrist. And one thing that phrase that keeps coming back to me as I listen to stories and observe what's going through my own imagination is a principle coming from permaculture design, which is an ecological design discipline that I've done some training in and that we use a lot here at Gilchrist. And that phrase is, the problem is the solution. And just recognizing like how many of the examples that are coming to mind here are kind of a practice of that principle, that the problem is the solution. And one thing that I'm thinking about in particular was in 2020 when we, came to a grinding halt in March 2020, canceled all of our group retreats, had such a time of uncertainty and loneliness and confusion. We suddenly, our team, which racially identifies as white, all of us, with quite a bit of age diversity. At that time, we had people in their 20s through 80s, like almost every decade. We found ourselves with time and sort of this affinity group, this white affinity group, with an opportunity to really focus on our own racial healing as individuals and a collective, and to do some of that work together. And that was a really precious time for all of us. It was a raw time for a lot of people. And I think it just, for me, that was the problem of the pandemic, the problem of a staff that's not racially diverse, became a solution in that way. And so that's just making me think about how do I extend that to other things that right now I might be seeing as problems, but are really opportunities to learn, to grow, to build community, to do the work of healing. So thanks for the invitation.
And thanks for the counter invitation to flip our problem-based mentalities to, back to abundance and lilac trees and that deep inner soul work. It feels like the spiritual invitation of our time, to keep. I went to an art performance the other day, and it was beautiful. It just allowed all the feels. There was a little baby in it, it was about some hard things, but yeah, the joy, the anger, the sweetness. Anyone else have a story? Brenda.
I want to do mine kind of like we recently had our RHI retreat with Woodby Institute, and one of the things that Lauren had us do was start with. She read this beautiful thing that said, "I am from." And she was like, "I am through," both geography and people, but also like the food she ate, the places she played. So I think I want to kind of do it that way. I am from ancestors who taught me the community is wealth. I am from a grandma who said that we live in an abundant universe. There's more than enough when we're not isolated and afraid of each other. I come from intergenerational communities. I come from respect for elders and the invitation to young ones to lead and grow. I come from the teachings that resilience is individual, it's community, and it's a relationship with our environment. I come from people who believe that sovereignty is connected and agency is connected to resilience. I come from revitalization of cultures and reconnection to ancestors as forms of resilience and healing. I come from listening to the land and the land guardians and the elemental beings, because they were the youngest relatives and they have so much to teach us. I come from people where the elders are cared for by their families. I come from shared meals and shared resources. I come from hitting the pandemic and my medicine students coming and bringing me food and going shopping for me. Yeah, I come from trusting that we can find our way together when we're in a community, when we're in beloved community. Thank you.
Felt like one of those moments to honor silence and let some of these stories drop into our bodies. Anyone else like to share before we start to wrap up? And as Oren said, there will be another opportunity soon to deepen on this topic of resilience, but lovely to hear stories, images. So we often think of resilience as I think it's been described, the ability to bounce back, the ability to stay alive. And what you've been sharing today is so much wider, creating homes of refuge, healing, our own individual resilience, that deep inner wells of our own histories, our retreat center histories, finding places for really gathering around grief and courage, our ancestors, listening to the land. Yeah, thank you again for your stories. May you have an abundant rest of your spring.
Our lilacs have passed already, but I do know what you mean. I love the lilacs.
Mm-hmm. We're still coming into our wildflowers on the East Coast.
Do we have any other contributions to the conversation or any other check-ins from the Stewardship Circle?
Erin, were you typing notes while we were talking, or were
I sure was, yep.
I thought you were okay.
Yeah, if you'd like me to send those directly to you, I can email those to you.
Yeah, no, some lovely stories. It might be nice to have in written form.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and the recording of this will also be going up on YouTube by tomorrow at the very latest, so I can send that as well. If there are no other questions or check-ins, then I can let you know that the next community call is going to be on May 28th, and the topic is going to be addressing common hospitality obstacles. And Kirsten from Gilchrist will be our facilitator for that. We're looking forward to that, Kirsten. Thank you. And then Oren will be joining us. Do you know this, Oren? You'll be joining us on June 11th for a call on resilience with climate chaos, within climate chaos. So that's when we'll be talking a little bit more about resilience. So glad you could all join us today for this update and share your stories with us. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, everybody. Glad to see that this is keeping going. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Happy birthday, Brenda. Happy belated.
Happy birthday.